Everyone, and welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel. Mike Catalana alongside Dan Fetes here. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Over 16,000 strong and continuing to grow. We really appreciate all the support. Wrapping up another practice here, the final practice before the final preseason game. And Mike, maybe what is the first thing that stood out to us today? Starters not playing in Carolina.
Yeah, he was basically saying it right off the top.
Yeah.
Starters aren't playing. Josh Allen's starters aren't playing. It's the right move. I think we knew that. We were a little bit surprised that he played even in the last game, and he did. And obviously, Josh being Josh, 6 plays, one when he does the spin around and a touchdown. Great. How much that impacts him going into the Rams game, they could tell us that. They don't really say. He doesn't need to play in this game. It's going to be the backups. I think we already know who the starters are, the guys that are going to sit out. It's the right play. It's the right move getting into the regular season.
I have said that they should have bubble wrapped the starters last week and shipped them off to LA. I think we did have on one of the podcasts, you can see it over on the YouTube channel, was how many snaps we thought Josh Allen would get in the preseason. I think Jenna was over 30, and I think I was under 20. So he really only got 6. It looked good. The other thing is, there's still the determination of where Ken Dorsey will call plays.
Yeah.
And one thing was, Dorsey said yesterday that he feels comfortable on the sidelines because he's been on the sidelines. He's been on the sidelines with Josh. But Sean McDermott today provided a little perspective of what it's like in the booth.
He said it's like a library in the booth, which is kind of funny, but he's right. I mean, if you ever see it, it's tight quarters.
Yep.
They're sitting most of the time. It is a very, very different environment. The view is great.
Yep.
Because you're looking down and you're seeing the whole thing. But you lose a little of that connection with your players and the feel of the game. It's interesting. It almost seems like a given to me. If I was a coordinator, I'd want to be upstairs. But sometimes those players, those coaches don't want to lose that connection.
Yeah, McDermott called it chaotic at times on the sidelines with so many players and kind of around you. And he said, sometimes it's nice to remove yourself. He goes, you see better. But he's like, sometimes you also want to be a part of that chaos. So obviously, you have to have the trust, and Dorsey has said the trust in Joe Brady.
Yeah, and that's interesting because the way I look at it is I think Brian Daboll needed to be on the field with Josh early in their relationship.
Yes. Yeah,
Josh needed that more. I don't know if he needs it as much. I think this is more about Dorsey than it is Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I think Josh is going to be fine wherever his coach is. It's about Dorsey seeing the field, and the fact that he's a psychopath, maybe he has to make those determinations.
Whether or not he's a psychopath is still to be determined. Sean McDermott wouldn't get into that today. I asked him if he wanted to weigh in. Josh seems to think he is. Ken disagrees. Sean McDermott pled the fifth and would not answer the question.
Yeah, you asked him about that, and that was his answer. Now, you had me listen to the Part of My Take podcast, where Sean went on and basically was asked if he could beat up the toughest coaches in the NFL.
Dan Campbell and Mike Vrabel.
Yeah, and Sean, being Sean, said, yeah, both of them at the same time. Which, if you get a chance to listen, I know you only listen to us, but if you get a chance to listen, it's pretty good.
Yep.
And Sean is really good on it. He's funny.
Personable.
He was great. He really was.
It was an open Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
We did get to see some practice. It was a lot of ones going up against ones. As Sean McDermott said, they wanted to kind of ramp it up because they wouldn't play, obviously, in Carolina. And one play really stood out to us, Mike.
Yeah, we're standing behind, watching behind Josh Allen throwing the ball. And we can see Dane Jackson's in coverage and Isaiah McKenzie. And from our angle, and by the way, and from former All-Pro defensive back Rodney Harrison's angle, you look at it because he was standing there on the sidelines, it almost looks like, where is Josh throwing the ball?
Yeah.
And then what happened?
Perfect ball right over Dane Jackson's fingertips in front of the safety. Isaiah catches it on a go route. It was one of those throws where you're like, why is he throwing it to Dane? And then all of a sudden, McKenzie's there. It's a perfect throw. And Rodney Harrison kind of came over to us and was like, you guys are spoiled. Like he goes, he made that look. So he's like you get to see that every single day. He goes, that's not fair. It was a next level throw. It's a test to, it was a perfect throw. Also really nice catch because that is a ball that is traveling just over the fingertips of a corner who had good coverage.
It's between the corner and the safety. Like, you've seen this play before, but the angle we watched it from, I almost laughed because I'm like, oh, he's throwing that up. And I don't think Dane Jackson had bad coverage on the play.
Better throw.
But he and Isaiah hooked up for that one. He had also a nice one crossing route to Crowder, and he took it to the house, and that got him all fired up. The other guy I noticed on defense today, is a guy you might want to keep an eye on, is that number 40.
He's pretty good. And 91.
He is so quick off the edge. Quessenberry is trying to get out in front of him. Not just him. He lined up on the other side. He got past Dion, too. The quickness he comes off the line of scrimmage at, honestly, Mario Williams was a very successful player when he was here, but I have not seen that quickness. Now, it's from a stand-up position a lot of times since Bruce. I mean, Bruce was crazy quick off the line, and he would just line up, and he had you beat beforehand. But I'm watching Von Miller, who's not going to play on Friday, and he's amazingly quick coming off the edge.
Yeah, he was impressive. A guy we talked to also after practice, Taryn Johnson. He's kind of the last man standing. Look, the last time that the Bills were out there, you have Trey White, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer. A lot of those guys haven't been around at training camp or nursed injuries. Taryn's been out there every single day and said, this is what it is.
Yeah.
It's no big deal.
Sometimes we almost forget he's a starter. I looked it up. 85% of the snaps on defense last year, they play nickel all the time.
More than anybody else.
And he's got that spot, and he's knocked it out of the park in that spot. And maybe it started, that year he got benched for a while, then he came back in 20, and then he had the pick six against Lamar Jackson in the playoff game right behind us. And he's been the mainstay there. But he's used to having Poyer and Hyde. Now, Hyde was out there practicing today. I think Poyer will be back soon. Trey White and Levi, who was a staple. He was a starter on the other side. It's a couple of rookies. It's Dane Jackson. It's been other safeties. But Taryn Johnson has been, if he's not the best slot corner in the league, he's right up among them.
Yeah, and he's, while he's this familiar face is what we're talking about, a new number. He's wearing number 7 this year. He said it's because it's what he wore. You looked it up. He wore 1 in college. He wore 7 in high school. And he said he wanted to think back to that and just remember to have some fun.
Yeah, and I think he's just been that kind of guy. He was asked about, coaching and teaching the other players. I don't think that's really his thing.
No.
He was like, yeah, I will. But these young guys do ask him questions, and he's been able to help them a little bit. But, number 7 took a little while for us to get used to it because we've been used to it. And 24, obviously, is Kair Elam now.
Is there any player that you're looking out for? Obviously, we know the starters aren't going to play. Sean McDermott says he wants to give those second and third teamers a fair shake at the evaluation before cuts. Is there a player that you're looking at coming up in Carolina on Friday that you would need to see something out of, or maybe a battle that you're looking at?
I think O.J. Howard is playing, and I want to see what he does. I know there's a money factor, and he is a big man. He stands next to the other tight ends, and you realize how big he is. And they won't tell us for sure, right? We never get totally honest answers out of the coaches and all. But I think he's been a disappointment because obviously they wouldn't have given him this kind of contract. I don't know how big of a gap they believe there is, or if there is not with the other tight ends in terms of that backup role. But I'm going to be interested to see when he plays, how much he plays, if there's a trade partner out there. Now, maybe I'm reading this totally wrong. Maybe we go on Friday and he's sitting down on the sidelines and they say he's fine. I don't know, but I want to keep an eye on that.
I want to keep an eye on Spencer Brown. He split first-team reps today. It still seems like they're trying to nurse him back into that role, but you know that Sean McDermott wants to solidify that offensive line, get some continuity. I'd like to see Matt Araiza punt. We didn't get to see it last game. That would be fun to see. And then obviously I think the one that we always talk about, every single training camp, 31 other training camps and teams are dealing with that 6th or 7th wide receiver.
Yeah.
Jake Kumaro, Isaiah Hodgins, both expected to get, I would imagine, plenty of run to see who can step up.
Yeah, there's big decisions still to make, and we've all talked about the Trey White decision, how that's going to impact the roster. I believe that early in the year they're going to have that roster spot. I think he's going to go on that PUP list. Now, that's just speculating because we still haven't seen him at practice. But I think that plays into it a little bit, too, maybe keeping another guy. It's where, Cam Lewis in that role and maybe a little backup safety. So all those guys are a factor, but it's the backups playing. It's important to them. And that bubble wrap for Josh Allen and Von Miller and all, ship them out to L.A., get them ready for week 1.
As the Bills look to win their 11th straight preseason game. He was asked about it. Sean McDermott was after they beat the Colts and then said, we don't talk about it.
Yeah.
Luckily, there was no jinx bringing it up, so we can bring it up here. Going for their 11th straight win.
Just win, Mac Daddy.
That is it. That'll do it for Mike. I'm Dan. Jenna's back in studio. We'll have plenty of more coverage continuing, wrapping up. We'll have a podcast coming out tomorrow on Thursday, so be sure to stay tuned for that. That's what I meant to say. For Mike, I'm Dan. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching Buffalo Plus YouTube channel.